Dating Chronicles Part 1. This may or may not be a multi-part series. I'm going on a first date today. I haven't been on a date in probably 8 years. But I thought it would be fun to chronicle these. They may or may not get posted, but we'll see. So I'm going to protect the innocent and not share names. But today I'm going on a date with, we're going to call him Alex. Alex messaged me on Facebook dating with a funny message about having a lot in common except for the Disney thing. And my curiosity was piqued, so I responded back and said, well, why not Disney? I can change that. And he says, many have tried, or something like that. So anyways, not my typical type, I'll be honest, but I'm trying to be open-minded in all this because clearly my picker is broken. So like I said, not my typical like blue collar, beard, scruffy type guy, a little more clean cut, but has been very much like, hey, do you want to go out on this day? Like not a lot of chit chat, getting to know you up until leading up to it. It was just like, let's make a plan. Invited me to do a hike on Saturday. I can't this weekend. I have other plans with my best friend. And so he was like, okay, let's do lunch on Thursday. And he lives pretty far from me, so I wasn't sure how that was going to work out. And he said, okay, 3:30, because I told him I worked till 3-ish, and sent me a place. So I like the initiative. I like that he just planned it and said, hey, meet me here. Haven't really talked to him leading up to the date, so we'll see. I'm sitting in the car right now because he's running a little bit late because of the traffic, because he did drive a little bit far. So do we want to recap after or what? We'll see. All right, first date update. It wasn't terrible. Now that I'm home, I can tell you he chose to meet me at Haven City Market, which is kind of like a giant food court, which is fine. It was a midday date. He texted me when he got there and parked, and I just walked and met him at the front, said hello, and then he was starving, so I was like, well, pick where you want to eat, because I wasn't really hungry at 3:30. So he picked, we got some food, sat down, chit-chatted, conversation was easy. We talked very like surface level. I mean, we did talk a couple personal things, like what we did for a living, that kind of stuff, like past relationship. But yeah, it wasn't bad. He's easy to talk to. Definitely not my type, like I said, but I'm trying to look past that. Definitely felt more like friend type vibes. I wasn't feeling any crazy chemistry or anything, which I know doesn't always happen on the first date. I'm just saying. But yeah, didn't get the ick or anything weird. But we'll see. It was like an hour, a little over an hour and a half. He had to get back to work. I had to come home and feed the dogs. And yeah, so we'll see. I probably won't initiate like meeting him again, like reaching out or whatever. But if he reaches out and wants to do the hike he talked about or whatever, I'd probably go out with him again just to kind of see before I made that decision. But I'm glad I got that first date out of the way now that I'm back in the dating world, because it's a little awkward. And like I still don't know, like, do I offer to pay? Do I just stand back? Like, which seriously, what do I do? Like, do I offer to pay? Like, it wasn't like a sit down restaurant. It was like he ordered at the front and I wasn't really eating, but he was like, what if I get a couple appetizers? Will you like have some of those? And I was like, yeah, I'll have a few bites. So I don't know, but anyways, I digress. So not a bad first date, but Dating Chronicles will continue. Okay, update. He texted me, said he thought I was pretty awesome. I mean, I am, and asked if I'd be up for a second date. So I said yes. I don't want to be a jerk and just like write him off because I didn't feel chemistry on the first date. So I think by the second or third though, I'll know. He's a nice guy. What's the worst that can happen? So I don't know when, but he said we're going to plan a second date. Dating update on Alex, the guy that I went on a date with, asked me on a second date. I said sure, even though I didn't really feel the chemistry, but I thought, let me give this guy a second chance. That second date is not happening because people are weird. So I sent him a text message on Saturday, just like a, hey, hope you're having a good weekend, like check in, whatever. Saturday, let's say midday. I don't know what time it was. We'll say like 1 o'clock. Do you know I didn't get a response? Like not even liking the message, nothing, until Sunday night at like 9:30 at night. He texted me, hey, my weekend was great. How was yours? Or something like that. So I didn't respond, and before y'all come for me and say I'm mean and I should respond, over 24 hours to even respond to a text message is ridiculous, and I'm not playing low effort. I don't need somebody. I know what I want. I know I want somebody who shows effort, and that's not effort to me. He didn't need to send a long response, but like even liking the message or something, I don't know, like that to me, that's just like, it takes 2 seconds to text somebody. So anyways, that will not be happening. So moving on. I don't know when Dating Chronicles episode 2 will come out, but I'll keep you posted.
Hi guys, I'm Felicia. I've been discussing the murder of my 2-year-old son, Connor Allen, who was killed by a Green River police officer in Green River, Wyoming in 2009. His name is Jacob Anglesey. So I I'm trying to cover a lot of things. I'm trying to cover 17 years for you guys. I know that there are people with a ton of questions, especially about the sentencing and stuff. That is something that I want to make sure I get as in order as I possibly can. So I'm gathering documentation as much as I can of that. Some things are sealed, so I will have to get in touch with people and remember from my memory, right? But anyways, Jake was arrested in February of 2016. We spent 2 years in court, almost, just shy of. In December of 2017 is when we did the sentencing. He got 16 to 20 years. His charge is voluntary manslaughter. He got time served, so that took off 22 months of his sentence. For every 30 days that he is a good boy, he gets 15 days taken off of his sentence, is what I was told at the very first parole hearing that I had. In 2025, at the last parole hearing, he had 6 months taken off of his time. In Wyoming, you can ask for a parole hearing for up to 3 years prior to your eligibility of parole. So he's not eligible until October of 2026. However, I have done multiple parole hearings. They're a fucking nightmare. I have to relive so much. I have to relive the emotions. I have to talk about it more. After this last parole hearing, and I want to say the parole board has always been good to me. I have always felt very heard by them. They have, asked questions, and they honestly have been really receptive of I've gotten thousands of signatures. I've gotten tons and tons of letters from people to try to block this fool, and they've listened. I feel like this last one, they did give him 6 months of time off, and that fucks me up. Honestly, it does. Right after this last parole hearing, 2 months later, I get a letter in the mail that says that he wants to do work release. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? So they can apply for this, and it's to get them out into society, right? And I have come to terms that he's going to get out eventually. Why on earth would they want to cut this short? He is a cop who killed a baby, who takes no accountability. He has lied. He has played the system. I have proven it all. But they still have let him do this, and they still have given him special treatment. So, part 2 coming up. Part 2 of the parole hearing, work release things. Okay, so I get a letter in the mail a couple months or so later after the last parole hearing, which always kind of happens in August, that he is going up for work release. And I'm like, dear God, can I get a fucking break? I can't get a break. I cannot get a break, you guys. It is constant. It is every 6 months minimum that I get, that I don't have to hear from this bitch. So I'm like, what is this? I get a hold of the victim's advocate that is at the prison, whatever. She's been awesome to me, honestly. She's freaking wonderful, and they all have been. And anyway, she tells me what it is. So he can apply for work release, and they'll send it to one, see if they grant it. Send it to, if they don't, goes to another one. So it gets sent to Gillette. Gillette, real fast, okay? Thank God. Mind you, I have thousands of signatures trying to block this. I have tons of letters from a lot of different people. I have it from police officers. I have it from teachers. I have it from doctors. I have these letters from good people from society that are like, we do not want this motherfucker out, okay? So Gillette goes to Cheyenne. They immediately freaking approve this. I am absolutely distraught. I was at Zembrennan Tires, or whatever they call it, Les Schwab Tires now. I'm out in the field walking my dog around, just absolutely bawling my eyes out when they're telling me this. And I was like, I want to talk to the board members. And they're like, well, typically that's not something they do. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, they go ahead and just grant these people all of this stuff, and they don't even talk to the victims that are left. So I kept pushing, and then they're like, fine, we'll talk to her. And I'm like, oh, thank God, right? So I prepare everything again. I sit in front of, I think it was 8 board members for the work release program in Cheyenne. I have never been around people that were so annoyed how could I bother them? How could you bother me with this? I'm like telling them, you know, all of the special treatment he's got, like what he did. And I don't know which one of them or which all of them think that this man is the guy that you can just integrate back into society and he's going to be okay. But they're all fucking wrong. And they really, really did me dirty. And they really slapped my son in the face. Again, the system slaps my baby right in his freaking face one more time. So I don't know when he's going to get out for work release. And I'm not well versed in what the program is. So a lot of people are like, is he going to be a cop again? No, he's a felon. But also at this point, anything is fucking possible because the system is completely fucked. So he's just going to get a job somewhere. Cheyenne, Wyoming. Do you hear me loud and clear? Jacob Anglesey is going to be coming your way. He murdered a baby. He is not remorseful. Women in Cheyenne, be careful of this fool. Don't date him. My God. I don't know. It's messy. The system is broken. The more I talk about this, like daily, the more I realize how fucking broken the system is. And I'm sorry, I cuss all the time, and I'm really sorry. I know it's very unbecoming. But it's broken, and I know that I can't necessarily fix the state of everything that I've gone through. But my goal through all of this is be heard, get Connor's story out there, and laws have to change. There is no reason why somebody who is a cop, who murders a baby, who gets all this special fucking treatment should ever go up for early parole. It's crazy. His sentence was 16 to 20 years. He hasn't been in there for even 10 years and he's on his way out. That's unacceptable. And we should be very mad. We should be very fucking mad, every one of us. Hi guys, I'm Felicia, talking about my 2-year-old son's murder, who was murdered by a Green River police officer in 2009 in Green River, Wyoming. My son is Connor Allen. The man who murdered him is Jacob Anglesey. Something I wanted to make really clear, because I don't want it to come across any other way. If it has, I want to clear it up. When I talk about the system failing, I am talking about the wardens and those people in the Department of Corrections. I am not talking about the parole board, because they have been nothing but receptive to me, honestly. The one time that they gave him the 6 months, you just swallow it and you go on, okay? Because it is what it is, honestly. I said what I had to say, but they really have been so good to me. They have listened to me every time that I have sat down for a parole hearing. It's all through like a Zoom meeting, basically. And I watch them, and they are all eyes on me. They are all eyes on Connor's dad. I appreciate them so much. The work release board in Gillette, thank you. If anybody sees that, the work release board in Cheyenne, how fucking dare you? When I'm talking about failures of the system, I'm not, obviously, okay, landlord DCI took on this case, and they worked so freaking hard, and they never let this go, and they weren't going to until some kind of justice was served. And I am forever indebted to them. I am forever indebted to the county attorney for picking up this case so many years later. And his whole team, they worked their ass off for me and for my son and for Connor's dad, and for some justice for it. Is it what I wanted in the end? No. That had a lot to do with the judge too. And I have been helped by there's a deputy here in town, or I think he's a lieutenant now. He's amazing. He's been amazing. He's been so helpful. He has helped me feel safer. I have a friend who works for the Green River Police Department. They're amazing. Like, I do have these people, and while the system is super broken, there are people that are working in it that are helping keep things a little more in line. And I want them to know, because they know exactly who I'm talking about, the amount of gratitude that I have for them. I have sent, like I said, thousands of signatures, thousands of letters. I have read a statement. I think that maybe tomorrow I will try to read you guys my last letter that I wrote to the parole board, and I also like tweaked it a little bit so that way it could go to the work release program too. That's going to be really hard for me. So if I don't collapse, I will post that tomorrow. I'm really going to try to. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you for sharing, for posting, for reposting, for commenting and engaging in this. This is going to get so big, and this is We're Connor's voice, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you.
Hey guys, okay, so I know everybody has been waiting on a story time. Thank you for being so patient. I'm going through a lot right now, and I just had to wait until I was able to get my health stuff kind of at bay so that I can make this video for you guys. So the event that occurred, it happened on the night of January 14th, 2019 to kind of like the morning of January 15th, 2019. On January 14th, I had worked my normal first shift. I worked 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I had gone home, and then about 5 o'clock I got a phone call saying that the third shift guy was not able to make it that night and they needed coverage. So I was really the only one that was available, so I was like, yeah, I'll work it. You know, I enjoy working the night shift. So normally we get a rush somewhere around 11:30 because one of the factories across the street, that's what time they go on lunch. So everybody just comes over to either heat up their food or grab a snack, you know, whatever. I noticed a car come through the parking lot. They drove in from one side and then kind of looped around the building. If you know the way that the store is set up, then you know that like it is kind of like a big circle around the building. So I had noticed that car come through the parking lot, and I automatically recognized what kind of car it was. So at this point, I'm on high alert, like I'm watching everything, keeping an eye out. Just, you know, I had my senses turned up a little bit. So we made it through the rush. I was the only one working. We only had one person working on night shift at that point. I don't know what they do now. So I had, you know, restocked all the food, cleaned the fountain, drinks, mopped the floors, you know, just did all of the normal tasks that you have to do during your shift. So every night around midnight, we would get a donut delivery. We got our donuts delivered from Chattanooga, and it was always midnight, 12:15, never any later than 12:15. And it was about 12:30 and the donut delivery guy hadn't shown up yet, which I was like, okay, they're just kind of, you know, running behind at this point. I don't know. That's an important thing. Keep that in mind. So around 12:45, I had gone outside to take like a little nicotine break real quick. If you know, you know, if you work at a gas station, nicotine is a necessity. You can't get through the day without it. So I was standing outside, just kind of minding my own business, playing on my phone, and then I look up and I look to my left, and two guys were walking towards me. There were no cars in the parking lot, and they had come from behind the building. So again, if you know how the building is set up, I mean, I can see where all of the parking spots are. So I knew they came from around the building. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here, come back for part 2. I should have it posted like pretty soon after part 1. Okay, so part 2. So we left off with, I had looked to my left and there were two guys walking towards me. They both had face coverings on, and I knew exactly what was about to happen. Thinking about it now, I probably could have made it back in the store and locked the doors before they got to me, but I froze. My whole body just kind of went numb and I froze. They got about 3 or 4 feet away from me and pulled out a knife and looked at me and said, "Let's go." So I walked in the store. They came in behind me, still had the knife out. I don't remember if they both had a knife or if just one of them did, but there was a knife involved. So obviously they had me open the cash register. They took all the money out of the cash register, like even the dimes, nickels, and pennies. They had told me to open the safe. The safe has a time delay on it. It does not open automatically. I don't know what kind of safe they have now. I know it would still have a time delay on it, but at this point the time delay was, I think, 7 minutes. So that's what I told them, you know, it's a time delay. I can't physically open it right this minute, but you know, there's nothing I can do. It's a 7-minute delay. So one of the guys was older and one was younger, and I could just tell that in their voice. Obviously I couldn't see their faces, but you know, you can tell if someone is older, younger based on their voice. So as they were waiting for the safe to open, I was just kind of standing off to the side. I had my hands up and I was praying harder than I had ever prayed before in my life. I was absolutely terrified. The older guy looked at me and said, "I'm not trying to hurt you, but I've got to make a living." So in the time that they were waiting, my purse was sitting on the counter. I had always left my purse on the counter, like I never thought anything about it. So they had found my purse and they went through my wallet. I didn't have any cash on me. I never carry cash. But the older guy had made a point to pull out my driver's license and look at my driver's license. That was one of the big things that scared me the most once everything was said and done. So they were waiting 7 minutes for the safe to open, and while they were waiting, you know, they were getting cases of beer, cartons of cigarettes, vapes, and a toolkit that was in the back room. So the younger guy kept telling the older guy, "Hey, we need to go. We need to leave, like, we're gonna get caught." And he kept calling him Pops. So in my head, I'm thinking this is like a father-son duo. I didn't know. I was just trying to listen to what they said so that whenever the cops got there, I could talk to them and tell them like every detail that I possibly could about these people. But at the same time, I was praying that I was not going to be hurt. I was not going to be unalived. I was terrified. Okay, this part is getting kind of long, so I'm going to go ahead and make a part 3. Okay, so part 3. So as we're all standing there, they're getting all of the stuff that they want to get. I see headlights, and it's our donut delivery driver. He is pulling in the parking lot finally. He had finally made it there. At this point, it's like 12:50, 12:52, somewhere around there. They grab everything that they possibly can, and they take off running out of the store. They're dropping stuff on the way. I think they dropped half of what they were trying to take. They had parked their car down at the road on like the 41A side. So they took off running. They ran out the door to the right and then ran down the hill. The donut delivery driver literally did a U-turn and almost flipped his box truck chasing them. And then the donut guy was able to like flag down a cop, because we always had cops roll through the parking lot to just check on us, make sure we were okay during third shift, and they wouldn't leave until we waved at them. So that's what this cop was doing. He was just coming in to do a check on us. The delivery driver like flashed his lights, waved him down, told him what was going on, and the cop started chasing these two guys. They ended up having to terminate the pursuit because they had gotten over 100 miles an hour and it wasn't safe anymore for them to continue, but they did get the license plate. So they went to the address that the plate was registered to, and they found the car there. The hood was still warm, showing that, you know, it had been running. So the next day, they had found the car again, and they arrested the two guys. One of them was 54 years old and the other was 18. I will go into detail about the 54-year-old. He was on parole, but we'll go into that later. So the cops obtained a search warrant for the apartment, and once they went into the apartment, they found the cases of beer, the cartons of cigarettes. Like, they found most of what was stolen that night. And the 18-year-old was still wearing the same clothes that he was wearing whenever he was in the store, whenever he was arrested the next day. Sorry guys, I'm getting kind of shaky just talking about this, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, so obviously whenever they were first arrested, they were both saying, I didn't do it, you know, that's what everybody does whenever they're first arrested. So at this point, even though I knew that they had been arrested, I was terrified. I mean, I couldn't sleep. I did not want to be home alone because they had looked through my license. I wouldn't go out in public, but I didn't want to be home alone. So it was a very difficult time. The PTSD was real, and I started therapy, you know, like within a week or so because I had to do something. Okay, so the next part, I'm gonna go into kind of the history, the sentencing, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so part 4, hopefully this will be the last part. I'm sorry it's so long. I'm just trying to provide you guys with as much detail as I can. I'm not gonna say names. If you want to know names, I'm sure you could look it up and find it on Google. So the 54-year-old was arrested in the summer of 1991. He had robbed a gas station in Nashville on Nolensville Pike, and him and I believe it was his stepbrother unalived the lady that was working. He had served 25 years and 7 months, and he was released in September of 2016. So the trial for this incident was not until November of 2021. If you see me looking away, it's because I wrote down the dates so that I wouldn't get the dates wrong whenever I was telling you guys. During the trial, I obviously had to get up on the stand and testify, and I had to watch myself on the video getting robbed on 7 different angles. So I had to watch it 7 different times. As traumatic as that was, I knew I had to get through it. I knew that this would provide some type of closure for me to be able to look at him and tell him exactly like how I felt, you know, all the emotions that I was going through. And I actually kind of shut down his defense attorney. He kept asking me what I would consider stupid questions, so I was just being a smartass. Like, don't ask me stupid questions and you won't get stupid answers. So, due to his previous convictions, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, plus he had to serve the remainder of his original sentence. So altogether, he got a total of 43 years with no chance of parole. So once I found out that he was serving 43 years, I was ecstatic. I was still on edge quite a bit. I mean, to this day, I still have PTSD. If I see somebody that looks similar to either one of them, like in a store or something, I shut down. You know, I can't be home alone a lot of times. Like, if it's nighttime, I can't be home alone. So, let's talk about the 18-year-old. I was asked after the trial, when he was found guilty before the sentencing trial, what kind of sentence for him I personally felt comfortable with. I have a lot of leniency for him because I believe the only reason that he did that was because he was pressured by the older guy. And the older guy was actually his mom's boyfriend at the time. So when they asked me what I felt comfortable with for his sentencing, I told them that I was fine with time served, because at this point he had served almost 2.5 years. So that's what they did. They sentenced him to 6 years, but 2.5 in jail and the rest on probation. For me, it felt like I was kind of giving him a second chance to get his life together, start a different path in life that wasn't going to lead to this. And from what I understand, he did not turn his life around. He has been in and out of jail quite a bit since that time. For me, knowing that I was robbed by somebody who was convicted of murder, it was hard. It's still hard to this day, because if that donut delivery driver had not shown up when he did, would I still be here? Would I have been injured? What would the outcome have been? And that's the thoughts that go through my head. I still have nightmares. I still have PTSD from this. And some people might say, well, you weren't injured, nothing happened to you. It took away my sense of security. It took away a lot of confidence. It took a lot away from me, and it took a lot for me to be able to bounce back from that. And I'm still bouncing back, I'm working on myself every single day. But to have somebody take that away from you, it's traumatizing. I loved my job at Circle K. I was an assistant manager. I was on track to become a store manager. Things were going great, and I was very proud of myself. I did try to go back to work at Circle K after the robbery. Obviously not immediately. I took some time off. And then the first time I saw myself on a third shift schedule, I was done. I had told them, absolutely not, I will never work third shift again. And being an assistant manager, there was no need for me to be on third shift. None at all. But as soon as they put me back on third shift, I was done. So I lost the job that I was trying to turn into my career because of them.
December 17th of 2017, my baby was stolen at birth. I want to preface this by saying that it was my selfish and horrible decisions that made this awful reality possible. But my poor decisions do not negate the severity and the wrongness of what occurred. I'm going to start by letting you know that my name is Hillary and I am an addict. In the year of 2017, I became pregnant for the 4th time, and I became pregnant with twins. I used illegal drugs throughout the entirety of my pregnancy, and I did not receive any prenatal care. At the end of my pregnancy, I asked some friends to commit me because I needed help. I would also like to qualify that from the moment I found out that I was pregnant, I did ask my child's father to commit me because I knew that I needed the legal part of the commitment to help me be accountable. It didn't happen. It doesn't lessen my horrible decisions, but it is the reality. I was committed to a hospital on December 15th in the afternoon between 4 and 5 p.m. And I was pregnant. I would end up giving birth 2 days later, and the nurse and the doctor would steal the little boy from me. I gave birth to 2 babies without an epidural, and the first one was a boy. The doctor cut the umbilical cord, looked me in my eyes after I asked to see him, and told me there was no baby. She proceeded to hand the baby to the nurse, who walked out of the room, and I never saw him again. Throughout the last 8 years, I have managed to get some documentation of the child's existence. However, some of the accusations that I am making, I cannot prove yet. I am sharing this story because I have run out of options for help, and so I'm telling the world. I have reached out to 20, if not more, lawyers through email. I have reached out to the police, the state police. I have even went to the FBI office. And due to the fact that I am a recovering addict, nobody cared. Sometimes addicts are considered subhuman and unreliable, and that's what has happened here. I am aware that I made awful decisions, but that does not make me any less of a human, and that does not mean I don't need justice. So if you have any horrible or negative things to say about what I'm sharing, then please don't, and just scroll away. If you don't believe me, okay, just scroll away. I'm going to start here, and I do have the pictures pulled up here, and I'm going to read them, and then I will list them on the screen to share with you. I was admitted to the hospital December 15th on a court order for substance abuse. The very first mentioning of my pregnancy, being twins, reads like this: coexisting medication info. Says her fingers tingle all the time. Patient is pregnant, possibly with twins, per ED doctor. She obtained no prenatal care. Patient says her due date is January 1st. The ED doctor feels that patient may be overdue. The second documentation I have from my medical records says abdominal narrative. Abdomen distended, C/W, advanced gestation. Unusual lie and or multiple gestation suspected based on palpitation and Doppler. Following that, I have another one that reads pregnancy, current visit, status acute, 28-year-old G-POR P3, and you can look up what that means, approximately 38 weeks gestation, no prenatal care, 2 unique fetal heart tones, possibly twin gestation, substance abuse. Below that, detailed labor and delivery exam. Comments: refused fundal height, 2 different fetal heart tones obtained, 150 and 135. I would like to add here that per Google, in a single baby, singleton pregnancy, Detecting two different heart rates is not a common or typical finding. It usually indicates that the monitoring equipment is picking up the mother's heart rate in addition to the baby's, or that there is an echo or artifact during an ultrasound. I would like to point out that a normal heart rate for a 21 or 28-year-old woman is 60 to 100 beats per minute, and that the heart rate of 150 is sometimes indicative of a male gender, and a heart rate lower, like 135, is indicative of a female. Not always, but generally. So that's what I have for medical documentation. My story is that I was admitted to the hospital under a psychiatric court order for substance use at 39 weeks pregnant with twins, having had no prenatal care. I was treated like garbage. I expressed my displeasure with the way that I was being treated, and it was written off as hostility due to drug use. It was very uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to calmly articulate that I could see how that I was being treated wrongly. Something I can't prove, but that I allege, is that the staff put Haldol in my drink to keep me sedated. I went up to the window and asked for something to drink, and they offered me a soda. I took a drink of the soda, and I could taste the medication in there, and I can prove with my medical records, me telling them I can taste the medication, and they wrote me off as though I was mentally unstable. After taking one sip of the soda, I asked for water, and I was denied water. Eventually, I was transferred up to the med-surg unit instead of labor and delivery for several hours. And at around 3 a.m., I went into labor. My water broke. I was screaming. The contractions were coming. I would like to add, prior to being transferred to med-surg, they gave me an ultrasound. In this ultrasound, I seen two spines, two skulls, and I seen the anatomy of the little boy. I started to tear up and get excited that I was having a little boy. And the nurse turns and looks at me and she says, "There's only one." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "There's only one baby." And I was confused. And I pointed at the monitor and I said, "I can see them both." And she says, "No, you can't." I didn't understand why she was telling me this. I tried to articulate that this was my fourth pregnancy, and I was smart enough to understand what I was seeing on the ultrasound. And she insisted that I was only seeing one pregnancy, one baby within me. I saw two spines and two skulls. And I saw his boy bits, letting me know that he was a boy. I would like to make it known that I was under a psychiatric observation, and I was acutely aware that if I proceeded to insist that they were lying about my pregnancy, that they were going to chalk it up that I was having a psychotic episode. So I decided to keep my mouth closed. We get to the delivery room, and they deny me an epidural. This is my fourth delivery. Up to this point, I had never given natural delivery, and it hurt. It hurt very badly. I pushed the first baby out, all natural. And I lift my head up and I say, "Can I see him?" And the doctor looks me in the eye as she's cutting the cord. And she said, "You're only crowning. There is no baby yet." And I said, I felt him come out. And she said, no, you didn't. And she's cutting the cord and she hands him to the nurse, the one who did the ultrasound and told me there was no second baby. And she walked out of the room with him. And I've never seen him again. I would like to remind you that I am stating I was under the influence of Haldol. And I put my head back because I was too tired to argue. And I started having another contraction for the little girl that was on her way out. I would like to preface that I pushed out an entire baby with no epidural out of my lady bits. I felt everything. I screamed through the pushes. I felt the relief of him coming out. And I was so confused because doctors have taken a Hippocratic oath. And in my naivety, I thought medical personnel were there to help. Delivery continues, and I give birth to my little girl. And I have permission to share her name. And her name is Violet. I did get to name her. I did not regain custody of her, but she is adopted within the family. And I have contact with her today. Shortly after Violet was delivered, they cut the umbilical cord and she wasn't breathing. I would like to state that the two babies were extremely active throughout the entire pregnancy. And throughout the pregnancy, I would often comment about how I could feel that there were too many kicks and punches and that I knew that I was pregnant with twins. I knew around 4.5 months because I was getting big quickly. There are a few individuals who are around who've seen me throughout the pregnancy. There's also a former friend of mine who has heard the father of the twins make sporadic comments about their existence. Shortly after Violet was taken out of the room, her father walks in and he had a terrible grin on his face, and I didn't know why. Violet was born. It's documented that she was born around 4:40 a.m. And I would like you to know that I was admitted into the hospital between 4 and 5 p.m. 2 days prior. This is a document from child support. It's dated February 20th of 2019, and it's written to the father. It says, "Dear Matthew, the Child Support Recovery Unit is in the process of establishing an order for paternity and support for Violet. This process will add your name to William's birth certificate as well. This is the final piece of evidence that I have of my child's existence. I found it lying on the floor of his house with a footprint on it. And it blew my mind. I am going to share some text messages of Matthew, of me showing him that I have this document and him telling me that he doesn't know who William is. Right here, I'm going to share it, is me sending the text with the proof of William's existence. And right here, he's saying, and I don't know who William is, so when you find out, let me know. That is just a small glimpse of the extreme gaslighting abuse I experienced from him. I experienced severe emotional, mental, physical, and sexual abuse from this man. And if you ask me why I kept going back, it was those snide comments every now and then about William's existence. I held out hope that one day he would finally admit fully, even if under his breath, and I would have something to go on. I'm going to share with you the text messages of Matt coming as close to admitting that he knows something as I've ever gotten him to. He says, "Can I ask how I would go about proving I did or did not partake in this Violet's twin thing?" I said, "You went to your family's house bragging about the twins the day before they were born. And there are screenshots that have been saved to prove it." Matt, "What do I do to prove I did or didn't partake in the incident? Because I'm trying to be honest and show you that I'm being transparent. I just don't know how I would show you." I said, "Tell me where William is. Either way, I'm having a lawyer investigate it. I just have to pay him." Matt says, "I asked you to tell me what I do to show you it did or didn't happen. How about security footage from the hospital that day? Could we get that?" I said, "I would forgive you for every single thing you have ever done wrong to me if you would just give me the information you have about William. I'm done here." Matt replies, "You promise you would?" I said, "If you told me everything you knew and it helped me get justice, I absolutely would." He says, "You would forgive me and level with me more, and we could maybe get back together and maybe even married if I gave you all the info I can about that day." And here's where I messed up, because I said no. I said, "We will never be back together or married." I said, "However, if you helped me with the situation with William, everything would change for the better." And he responds, "Oh, all right. So why would I worry about you forgiving me then, when the only one a grudge is hurting about past incidences is you? I hurt because I miss you." And then I go on to say some more things, and you can pause it to read it. That's the only time I've ever gotten in writing him even pretending to acknowledge William, despite him having been sent documentation from child support. That is the entirety of the evidence that I have to prove that this happened to me. I have held out sharing this story publicly out of fear of ridicule, judgment, humiliation, and because my truth is a painful truth. I need help. I've reached out to lawyers. And while I thought I had one lawyer, he explained to me that he would cost $2,000 and a private investigator would cost $10,000 minimum. I managed to come up with 10 grand. And when I called him, he didn't answer, so I emailed him. I let him know that I had the money to pay him and $8,000 to give to a private investigator. And he responded and told me that he was too busy to take my case. I've reached out to the Equal Justice Initiative, and while yes, they are meant to help people get off death row, I thought they might have some resources. And while their response was the kindest that I received, they didn't have any help for me. I've shared with my therapists. I've shared with, friends that I knew would believe me, that I felt I could trust. And then in shame and guilt, I hid the rest of my story. I have been preparing for 2 years to tell my story, and I've never had the guts to do it. These things really do happen. People in power do view others like addicts as subhuman, and they victimize them, and they commit atrocious acts against them because they're not the same. Their life is of less value. I'm sure this doctor and the nurse and the DHS worker believed that this child would live a far better life without me, and that it was no harm, no foul. They were making the right choice. I was just a junkie who had gotten high her entire pregnancy. I didn't deserve that baby. I had also lost other children. But the reality is what they did was wrong. And I deserved to have a relationship with him. And I would have a relationship with him. He deserved to have that twin bond with his twin. Finally, I'm asking anyone and everyone who watches my story to please share. Please help me get my story in front of as many eyes as possible, so that maybe one day I can find my child. My child's name is William. He is 8 years old, and he was stolen from me at birth. If you know of any family that fits this criteria, I urge you to please reach out to me, if for no other reason, to let me know, to help me find my child. If you are a lawyer or an investigative journalist or a private investigator or anybody who knows what I can do next, please reach out to me. My email is listed in all of my social medias. From this day forward, I will continue to share my story. I'm willing to answer any and all questions. And again, I ask that if you don't believe me, just scroll away. Please don't say anything negative, because in reality, there's nothing you could say to me that I haven't already said to myself. Help me get my story out.
So for those of you that don't know, I am in the process of going through a divorce from my current husband, and I have been really trying to keep the story and the reasons why I decided to go through with the divorce so fast, and what had occurred in our marriage and the things that have happened during our marriage and during our time together kind of under wraps, and not really wanting to give all of that information out. And I have reached my breaking point, and now I'm wanting to share it. So we're gonna have some story time, and we're gonna talk a little bit about it. My current husband and I have been together for a little over 4 years, and we got engaged about 2 years into our relationship. My current husband was extremely engulfed in my family. I have a really close family, very engulfed in my family, became really close with my nephews, the whole thing, very engulfed. And when we got engaged, I
needed to have, I wanted to get married in a time frame that wouldn't really affect the type of job that I have, which really meant being outside of hurricane season. And so with that meant around, the first part of the year, January, February timeframe. And so that really put us at like a 1.5 year long engagement. And he started to pressure me about how long of an engagement that is and how much he wanted to marry me and all of these things. And so we decided to get married at the courthouse in January, and then planned to have a big, huge, massive wedding with all of our friends and family and coworkers and everybody a year from that date. So we got married in January of 2025. And once we got married, he started to take his mask off and show me his true self. And he slowly started to become emotionally and mentally and sometimes verbally abusive. And he would turn small arguments into extremely large arguments. And he would tell me to leave and tell me to go find somebody who was better than him, or he would threaten to leave and we would both beg each other to stay, or he would threaten to leave and a couple of hours later he would come back and say, no, I'm sorry, I love you, I want to be married to you, all of these things. During this time frame, around April, which would be like 4 months after we got married, we went to Virginia, where he is from, and we had an engagement party with his family and his friends from up there, and we were super engulfed in everything. My parents came. It was a very big thing. And when we got back, the week that we got back, I got a "Hey girly" message from a woman, and he had been cheating on me with this woman for 2 weeks. She sent me all of their messages. He gave her a fake name. I got to read all of the disgusting, vulgar, very explicit messages that he was sending her while we were in Virginia. He sent her pictures that I took of him and his sisters at our engagement party. He sent her those. He had been talking with her and very explicitly talking with her for about 2 weeks. He met her in person. He claims he did nothing physical with her, but she claims otherwise. So I confronted him. We got into this big, huge screaming fight. He then proceeded to tell me that the reasons why he did what he did was because I was still close and talked with my ex-boyfriend, which I can post another story about that, explaining that situation, so you guys are all aware of it, and how that panned out. But he blamed that, and so I cut off my ex. I mean, he was a really close friend of mine, but I cut him off. I removed him from all social medias. I stopped talking to him immediately. I cut him off fully. And I told my husband where he met this woman. He met her on Snapchat. He told me that he deleted Snapchat, but in fact, that's really not what he did. He just blocked me, so I couldn't see that he had a Snapchat, which is, hindsight 2020. So we went through and we decided to go through with our wedding. We told my parents about the situation. We decided to go through with it, still having massive screaming arguments, threatening to leave, all of these things. We started to see a couples therapist. He went to individual therapy. I started going to individual therapy, and then we would go to couples therapy together. And then Thanksgiving, 45 days before our wedding, the couple of days after Thanksgiving, he came home one day while I was working remote and literally sat down and said, I don't want to be married to you. I want a divorce. I don't want to stand in front of all of our friends and family and tell them how much I vow to be with you forever and love you forever when I don't want that and I don't want to do those things. And he also proceeded to tell me really awful, terrible things about me. And so we ended our relationship. And a couple of days later, I found out that he had actually been having a relationship with another woman for more than 6 months. He met her in July. They had been talking quite frequently. They have had quite a lot of encounters. He brought her to our home. She slept in our bed. She cooked food that I thought he cooked, that I ate and didn't know about it. She was in our house on Thanksgiving Day making him dinner. When he left my parents' house Thanksgiving Day, drove home to our house to have her in our house making him dinner. It's all kinds of violations. I mean, she knew that he was married. She knew about me. They would talk about me and text about me and talk terribly about me. She was still married and going through, I guess, also going through a divorce with her husband. And I guess that's maybe how they bonded. I don't know. But he had also been telling all of his groomsmen and his friends about it. They all knew about it. They all met her. And he explicitly embarrassed me in front of everyone. And he duped my entire family. He duped me. He duped my entire family, all of my friends. He duped majority of his friends. He duped his entire family. He duped our therapists. All of these things. So I got an apartment. I moved out. All the while he had been, during this time frame, I got an apartment, I moved out. He has been begging for me to come back. Begging. Fully begging, saying he would do anything, delete all social medias, like all the things. He really brought out all the stops, and I held firm because he didn't know that I knew. And finally he admitted, and when he admitted, he had no emotion. And when I told him on the phone, I said, this woman could have a disease and you could have given it to me. We've been intimate in the past 6 months and you could have given me something that I would have to deal with for the rest of my life. You've jeopardized my health and safety. And his response was, I really don't effing care. That was his response to me on the phone. So after that, he hung up on me, and then he proceeded to block me on everything. I have, went through the process of getting an attorney, going through the divorce process. He immediately, started seeing that woman full time, and then also.
I said, nope. That's disgusting. Damn, so how'd you get back home? You had the Uber?
Proceeded to text me and say that he wasn't seeing that woman that he cheated on me with 6 months anymore, and he was seeing somebody else, which is that for him. It's been a month since, it's probably a month and a half, almost 2 months since we ended things, and he's already fully moved on. It's been hard. And since then, I have found out more things. I have found out that he's actually been engaged 5 times, married twice. I would be the second wife. Engaged 5 times. And his previous fiance, the one that he was with prior to me, reached out to me during this process and said that he did all the same things to her. And he actually had been cheating on her with a woman that he'd been in a relationship with for longer than her and him had been together. And they were 2 weeks from closing on a house together when she found out, and she kicked him out, separated from him, all the things. And then he started posting me all over his social media about a month later, which I had no idea that he had a fiance before. He never told me. He said it was an ex-girlfriend, all the things that most men tell you. Nobody wants to tell you about their previous relationships. And so I didn't know. So she went through all the same things. And on top of that, I have found out that he's actually had women in our house, in our bedroom and in our house, the month that we got married. And probably like about 20 different women. I've found out about 20 different women, and there's probably way more than that.
Okay, and turkey for
Oh,
you?
no, it's
okay. I can give you a small piece.
Different women, and there's probably way more than that. He's met them, majority of all of them, on Snapchat. It's been an interesting time. I feel fully violated on all accounts. He's, of course, going to lie and say that this is all a lie and none of these exist and all of these things, but I cannot let this man do this to anybody else. I want other people to know about it. I'm not going to stay quiet because he has to be the worst person that I've ever met in my life. And I married him. And I can, do videos about our process and more information. I can't stay silent anymore. I can't. And he's going to do what he did to me, the same thing that he did to the woman before me and his first wife. I also found out that, he was abusive with his first wife and cheated on her. She cheated on him, and I understand that, but I mean, he did this. He's done this with everybody for a very long time. Pathological lying, serial cheating. And yeah, it hurts. I'm just really glad to know that it's happening now and not, when we had kids in the future. I can only imagine what that would be like. So yeah, that's my story. If you resonate with my story, give me a follow, drop some questions if you have some. I'm just really focusing on moving forward and healing from the situation. And yeah.